So take them through the story, walk them through your life, starting with walking the dog. Because that is just I love that. I'll never get over that.
Absolutely. So, the biggest hurdle, again, when I was starting off, I was brand new into the Army, straight out of college, commissioned second lieutenant. I didn't have a ton of money to fall back on. I mean, I literally had maybe a couple months of paychecks at that point. Um, I had a career starter loan, so I had about 35 G's that I took out in a loan to kind of like jumpstart my career. So I was trying to figure out what to do, right? So I already knew that capital would be an early issue I'm going to encounter because most people were taught to look at real estate in like a very black and white area. Like it's like you want to buy a house, you have to go get a loan. You have to talk to a bank. You have to get pre-qualified. You have to put 20% down when you close on your house. So I was like, I can't do that. I can buy one house maybe, and then I'm stuck. So there's got to be other ways to go out there and do this, right? So that's when I really was really looking at like off market, like generating my own leads off market to find discounted deals, not buying at retail. That's when I also got into creative finance, leveraging strategies to allow me to leverage and get myself into deals with, you know, good terms that benefited me or like little to no down payment situation so I can actually get in the deal. Or else, young, what was I, like 25, 24? I'm not getting into those deals if I were to try to put all that capital down. And I'm sure most Americans are in a similar position. Like we don't have $1 million that we can just spend on real estate. Like
Yeah.
we have to grind and hustle in our 9 to 5s just to get enough to scrape by and get maybe one property. So I started off literally just doing exactly like you said, Mike, walking my dog, looking for those off market deals. And, we look for different things when it's just like driving for dollars, which is a common like investor strategy. I was doing just something similar. You look for signs of distress, like signs of vacancy, signs of just wear and tear. Like we're looking for problem properties that maybe we can provide solutions for. So my very first creative finance deal, I made six figures on. So what we did was
That's nuts.
I yeah. So I did a couple deals before this one. Before this one, I did a VA loan house hack. I can talk about that too later. And did my first burr. So this was like technically my third deal, but my first creative finance deal that I sourced myself.
Hmm.
So again, walk my dog, and this house is actually literally in the same subdivision as the house I lived in at the time. So at that point, I noticed it was vacant, noticed it needed a little bit of work. So wrote down the address and nobody's home, so I can't door knock it. So I got home, I skip traced it and I called him. No answer. But then the guy calls me back same day and he's like, dude, so glad you called me because this property is an absolute headache for me, right? So the story was like he had the house with his ex-wife and they still own title together, but it's his ex-wife. They didn't really have the best relationship. And so I think it was just bleeding him. It was like bleeding him $1,000 a month. He's like, dude, this is a headache. I want to cut ties this thing. Like, I don't even care. Like, I just need out of it because it's bleeding me dry. And so I think the success story here was how I pitched because, I think people, your story sells is like, there's going to be 1,000 different investors and how do you know which one to choose? I think they just end up choosing the one that they can relate to or the one that they end up liking the most. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people get hung up on that. Like, how do I compete with the hedge funds? How do I compete with the big dogs in my market? I tell them, dude, your story is going to sell way better. So I sold him my story. I was like, hey, man, I'm Taylor. I'm your neighbor. Like I live in this community. I'm like a good, I'm a good citizen, like in this community. I would love to buy this house for one to create create some passive income and some financial freedom for myself and my family. I'm a young army guy. I'm pretty dedicated to service and family man. I'm trying to just support a family here, and again, would love to purchase your house so that it would help out my family, help out the community. I live here. I walk by your house every day. I would love to see it, renovated with a nice family in there. And the main thing here is like I want to solve your problem. And that's how we close most of our deals. We're solving problems. So by solving his problem, he was open to, my terms and like,
Hmm.
how we wanted to structure this deal, because he was focused on the problem at hand, which was a property that was bleeding him $1,000 a month with his ex-wife. I think he probably hated. So he wanted to just break those ties. So my pitch was pretty easy. I was like, well, I can get this property off your hands in like a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I pitched sub two. Mind you,
Nice.
I didn't know really what the hell sub two exactly was. I was like, I read about this on Google and I know it's really good. So
Yeah.
I knew enough from doing my research and talking to some other sub two investors, like how the logistics of it work. I've never done one before, but I knew enough to speak about it intelligently and was able to like navigate those kind of tricky waters that are involved with sub two to get to that deal to closing. So the numbers on this is like, I assumed the pre-existing mortgage at $100,000. Now the house now is worth like 225, I would say. And so essentially I didn't, that was it. I said, I'll assume your mortgage. That was the purchase agreement. That was the offer.
Yeah.
So essentially I pay like $1,000 to a closing company or a title company to, do the transaction, transfer the paperwork, the deed into my name. And then boom, I picked up a house worth 225, assumed a mortgage at $100,000.
And that's the
Just
sub
like
two.
that.
You just assuming the mortgage for those that don't know.
Yep. Sub two is an acronym. It's subject to the pre-existing mortgage. And what that means is you're assuming the property with the pre-existing mortgage. We're not changing the intricacies of the financing at all. It stays in the seller's name. The mortgage payments still get paid to the same bank. Literally, you're just being added on as a like third party onto that mortgage, and you make the payments on behalf of the seller. So you're essentially assuming liability for those mortgage payments. And why is this awesome? Why is sub two awesome? It's my favorite strategy, but it's like, boom. For one, you don't have to go out and qualify for your own loan. You know what a pain in the butt it is to qualify for a home loan, especially when you're trying to do like 30 like me. So boom, you don't have to qualify for your own loan. Your credit, even if you have like no credit or crappy credit, sub two doesn't matter. You're just assuming that liability. For number two, most likely they're pretty far down the amortization process. When you go and get a loan, those like sneaky guys on Wall Street, the first 7 years of your mortgage payment, they're mostly interest. You're paying mostly interest, front loaded. And so when you pick up a property, let's say it's already 7 years down the road or 10 years, they've already paid off all the interest. Now all your payments, you're hitting all that principal. You're hitting all that equity. You don't have to wait around for all that interest to go through.
It's beautiful.
And then third is like with sub two, the terms you can structure however you want. You pick up where they left off. So for this guy, I didn't need a down payment. I didn't need to figure out where I was going to get money from because I didn't need it. It was like, boom, I just take this on sub two. Granted, this is a unicorn deal, y'all. Just so you know, like most people, I mean, it's hard to pitch sub two. This is the trickier one to pitch, but most people, I've done a good handful of sub two now. Most people, they need something down, like they need something down up front, or like they want some more of that equity. So typically, if like, let's say a guy was selling for $300K, and the mortgage is $200K, they want some more of that equity. So you have to figure out a way how to compensate them for that. But this is my third deal at the time. Picked up over 6 figures of equity. So what I did was I went in there and I renovated the property, cost me like $20,000, paid that out of pocket. And on the back end, I refinanced it. So I did like a sub two on the acquisition side, and I did on like a burr on the back end. So I kind of did like a sub burr. I'll make that up. Sub burr. And so when I was able to refinance it, I got a new loan in place that's in my LLC's name. But here's the benefits. So normally it makes sense to keep the financing structure in the seller's name, but it made sense for me here because there's such a deep pool of equity. I was able to tap into that and almost profit like a flip. So on the back end, I was able to tap into that equity. I paid myself back for the rehab, and I profited like $35,000. and it had a brand new renovated property with 25% equity built in it still that was cash flowing. So it's like, what the
Yep.
heck? There's like so many wins. So that one deal, I could probably say that one deal probably that could change somebody's life by just
Oh
doing one
yeah.
deal like that.